I never believed that a family reunion could feel like walking straight into a snare. But tonight was different. Today was hell personified. I sat at the large, polished dining table with a sorrowful heart, anticipating the false smiles and hollow talk that defined our twice-yearly meetings. The mood was heavy, thick with suppressed tension and whispered resentments. Beneath the mask of family, I knew there lurked wounds that refused to heal. I took a careful sip of my drink, seeking to steady my nerves, mindful that every eye in the room was fixated on me, waiting for something unexpected to happen. Then, as if planned by some sadistic twist of fate, my brother Ryan, the golden child, the one who had always managed to evade accountability despite his repeated failures, rose from his seat. A grin, uneasy yet laced with malice, spread across his face. His eyes glittered with something sinister as he raised his glass high and proclaimed, "Mom and Dad decided I should move into your house and marry your wife." In that instant, the room froze. The talk ceased. Every grin faded into blank, stunned unbelief. My mother, Helen, clasped her hands together with a smile that made my skin crawl, as if this outrageous notion were a stroke of genius. My father, Robert, simply nodded in approval, his eyes glittering, with a happiness that was both perplexing and aggravating. I felt as though I had become the unwilling centerpiece of a perverse family game, one where every action was planned to humiliate me. For a long, excruciating moment, silence reigned. I laid my drink down gently, my mind flying through every unpleasant memory of forced unity and betrayal. I gazed around at the faces before me, faces that should have offered support, yet now only mirrored shock and confusion. And then, I spoke, a calm, controlled tone, so starkly at odds with the pandemonium unfolding. "It's funny," I said, "because I sold the house last week and divorced her this morning." My words sliced through the thick tension like a scalpel. Ryan's cocky smirk crumbled, morphing into a mask of absolute terror. His face drained of color, as if every ounce of life had been sucked out of him. My mother's shriek shattered the silence, but my father's reaction, that was spectacular. He choked on his drink, his countenance a mix of fear and rage, exposing years of buried family secrets. I could see the wheels turning in every mind around the table, their shock morphing into terror. And then, into indignation. Without wasting a beat, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Slowly, deliberately, I slid it across the table, my fingers brushing over the cold paper that contained the finality of my decisions. Inside were two documents: the finalized sale contract for the house, and the divorce papers that severed the last vestiges of a poisonous marriage. As I watched fury and disbelief spread across my relatives' faces, a strange sensation welled up inside me. Liberation. Freedom from years of manipulation. A breaking of bonds that had tethered me to a family I no longer recognized. This was not an act of cruelty. This was necessary. For far too long, I had endured the weight of a past steeped in deception and betrayal. And now, as chaos rippled through the room like wildfire, I knew, without a doubt, that I had finally taken control of my own destiny. Every gasp, every cry, every broken illusion, they were steps away from the life I had been forced to live, and for the first time, I felt truly, undeniably free. "Better than me?" he hissed, his voice oozing with a mixture of bitterness and contempt. I could feel the wrath rising inside me as I listened, every word from him evoking recollections of all the years spent living in his shadow. "No, Ryan." "I know I am," I snapped, my words strong and unyielding. I could almost see the horror on his face as he discovered that I was not the pushover he had always assumed me to be. The conversation escalated into a nasty verbal brawl with my parents, interjecting from the sidelines. their voices overlapping and overwhelmed with contradictory emotions. My mother pled for understanding, claiming that Ryan was in a condition of despair because I had purportedly left him with little. My father, on the other hand, insisted that family was everything and that my actions had left a gap they could not fill. Yet I refused to let their words alter my reality any further. I spoke slowly and deliberately, each word a purposeful assault against the past that had long held me captive. "I never abandoned anyone," I said, my voice constant despite the chaos inside. "You abandoned me by prioritizing him over my own troubles. I was tired of living under the weight of expectations that were never meant for me. I made my life with my own two hands, and I will not let you or Ryan ruin what I have fought so hard to attain." The line went silent for a moment, leaving me in a silence that was as deafening as it was final. In that brief pause, I felt a burst of determination, an inner fortitude that had been blazing behind years of hurt. I could feel the pulse of my own resolve reverberating in the calm, telling me that this confrontation was not just about a phone conversation. It was about regaining my identity and establishing the record straight. I continued, my tone quieter now, but packed with evident finality. If Ryan keeps up this charade, if he continues to intrude in my life and try to take my identity, I won't hesitate to have him arrested. I have already acquired every piece of evidence, every record of his wrongdoing. I will not let any more of his falsehoods ruin what remains of this family. His voice, now shaking with a mix of rage and desperation, barely managed to retort. In that instant, I felt as if the years of silent pain and built-up resentment were finally flooding out. I listened as my parents tried to excuse their behavior, their voices breaking with remorse and denial. They spoke of previous misdeeds and of a time when everything was easier, a time before the weight of their preference had built an irrevocable chasm between us. But the more they talked, the more I knew that no amount of mournful words could restore the damage that had been done. The conversation had become a battleground, where every word was a reminder of the sad history we all shared. I took a deep breath and ended the conversation, leaving behind a quiet that was both cruel and liberating. In that time alone, I sat down and replayed every detail of the confrontation. I could feel the pain of nostalgic recollections, but also the burning certainty that I had finally taken a stand. The phone call was more than just an argument. It was a turning point, a proclamation that I was no longer prepared to be a victim of a family legacy built on bias and lies. I vowed to keep going forward, to let my actions speak louder than the harmful comments of the past. I knew that the road ahead would be arduous, and that the fallout from this confrontation might never totally heal. But I also understood that I could no longer allow the bonds of familial obligation to shape my future. With a fresh zeal, I swept away the vestiges of sorrow and rage, and I vowed to myself that from this moment on, I would be the master of my own fate. Every call, every allegation, every nasty remark had led me to this day, and now I was ready to face whatever consequences could come. Today, I recovered my voice, and I made it obvious that no one, least of all those who had already wronged me, could ever mute it again.